विघ्नेशानमुनी गुरुस स्मरुनी लक्ष्मीस आवाहिले. आम्ही गुंतवणूक शास्त्र शिकण्या हे सत्र आरंभिले. केव्हा स्थावर आणि जंगम कधी कोठे किती गुंतवू. चर्चा मंथन तज्ञ बोध मिळता हे प्रश्नही सोडवू. ठेवी भाग सुवर्ण पोस्ट अथवा रोखे तसे फंडते. वृद्धी भांडवली मिळो कर नको पर्याय हो कोणते. कोठे उत्तम रोखता सुगमता लाभांश वा व्याजही. कोठे गुंतविणे सुरक्षित असे नोंदीस कैसी वही. सन्मागे धन संपदा मिळविणे अत्यंत आवश्यक. पैसा ध्येय नसे म्हणून जपणे जाणीव सामाजिक. ज्ञानाचा उपयोग गुंतवणुकी साठी सदा होऊ दे. हे सारे समजावया सुमती दे आम्हास तू शारदे.
So good morning friends, and as I always say, last time also I can see a lot of smiling faces, and I wonder why they are smiling, because markets are at all-time high. So everyone is making money, I assume. Is there anyone in this room who's not making currently money in terms of his investments as far as equities are concerned? Then he really has to look at his portfolio. But otherwise, a lot of smiling faces. And to let you know more, we have an expert from the industry who's been with the industry for more than 25 years now. Ex-SBI, has spent more than 1.5 decades now with Franklin Templeton, Mr. Swaroop Bhatwadekar. Swaroop has not only worked in Mumbai, but his last stint, he was the responsible for sales of mutual funds in the state of Uttar Pradesh. So you can imagine how mutual fund is picking up in this country. So when you require an expertise of Swaroop-like person in Uttar Pradesh, you can see the demand that is picking up in those states also. So gone are the days where mutual fund only fakta Mumbai, Pune or Ahmedabad or Bangalore, where you used to get a lot of business from mutual fund. You have a lot of mutual fund business now coming from smaller cities in Uttar Pradesh. Forget Lucknow and Allahabad, but a lot of other small cities. So that's how important mutual fund, and it is grown and it will grow further. So I would like to welcome Mr. Swaroop. I request our chairman, Mr. Tadarkar, to please welcome Mr. Bhatwadekar with a small memento on behalf of Lokmanya Seva Sangha.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Neha also on the stage. I'll request Uday sir to please felicitate Neha also. She's been a strong support on behalf of Templeton for Lokmanya Seva Sangha. So without taking much of time, I'll hand over to Swaroop.
Thank you. माईकची गरज आहे थोडीशी. Okay, good morning everyone. एवढी स्तुतीचे शब्द आवश्यकता नव्हती, परंतु it's indeed my privilege, and I've been here for I think 3-4 times. And as I always say, we are grateful to Sangha, to all of you, that you give us an opportunity to share our thoughts, and it's our privilege. So thank you very much once again. कॉम्प्लेक्स सब्जेक्टवर बोलायला सांगितलं आहे, आणि I remember it was about an year back, almost year back or slightly less than a year back, similar topic वर इकडे मी माझे व्ह्यूज एक्सप्रेस केलेले, अँड आय मस्ट ॲडमिट आय वॉज रॉंग. राईट. About 6 to 9 months back, when I delivered this view on the markets, what we said that Indian indices, and those views were partially correct and partially not correct. And I'm happy to say that partially, आम्ही सांगितलेलं की we strongly believe that the Indian indices will not correct sharply. खूप जास्ती घसरण दिसणार नाही. At the same time, we also said that the investors had to be slightly mentally prepared, that they will have to spend slightly more time in the market to get those expected returns. And as they always say, either you are right or I am right or the markets is right. And yet again, it is proven that the markets are right. So thankfully, our views didn't go extremely wrong. Yes, we predicted the markets will not crash, stroke correct, but we at the same time thought that the markets may not give you the returns, and look what has happened. So today as we speak, the markets have reached to all-time high. आणि प्रत्येक वेळेला हा आपल्याला एक सिंड्रोम येतो, कन्फ्युजन होतं जेव्हा आपण ॲब्सल्यूट नंबर मार्केटचा बघतो. पण जर आपल्याला पॉईंट ए पासनं पॉईंट बी मध्ये जायचं असेल आणि इफ दॅट डिरेक्शन इज अपवर्ड, इन ऑलमोस्ट एव्हरी periodic levels you will see a different highs in terms of overall journey, whether it is journey from your own individual point of view or when you look at the markets. आणि थोडंसं जास्ती डिटेलमध्ये बोलू आपण की मार्केट्स ऑल टाईम हाय काय करायला पाहिजे. करायला ज्या गोष्टी मार्केट मागच्या वेळेला हाय होतं तेव्हा ज्या करायला हव्या होत्या त्याच आत्ता पण करायच्या. मार्केट हाय झाल्यानंतर इथून परत मार्केट पुढचा हाय गाठणार नाही असं अजिबात नाही आहे. इनफॅक्ट द थिंग्स आर लुकिंग व्हेरी व्हेरी पॉझिटिव्ह. इक्विटी ॲसेट क्लास हा असा ॲसेट क्लास आहे जो वॉलटाईल असतो, त्याचं नेचरच ते आहे, त्याच्यामुळे उतार चढाव येतील. पण द डिरेक्शन in which today the Indian indices or Indian as an economy is there, I think we are in a far better position. आणि त्याच्याबद्दल थोडंसं आणखीन मी डिटेलमध्ये एक्सप्लेन करतो. बट आय विल टेक यू बॅक 3 वर्ष अगोदर जेव्हा कोविड झालेलं. कोविड झाल्यानंतर एक सगळ्या स्टेट गव्हर्मेंट्सनी, सगळ्या सेंट्रल गव्हर्मेंट्सनी, सगळ्या रिस्पेक्टिव्ह एपेक्स बँक जे आपण म्हणतो विच इज इक्विव्हॅलंट टू RBI इन इंडिया, लिक्विडिटी खूप इन्फ्यूज केली मार्केटमध्ये. आणि ती कशासाठी केली? बिकॉज एक भयंकर ती एक वेगळी एक एन्व्हायरमेंट होतं आणि सगळ्यांना वाटलेलं की ही जी हा जो रोग आहे तो सगळ्यांना ऑलमोस्ट म्हणजे इट्स लाईक अ डूम्स डे टाईप. आणि त्याचं रेमिडिएशन करायला म्हणून लोकांनी, रिस्पेक्टिव्ह गव्हर्मेंट्सनी, रिस्पेक्टिव्ह कंट्रीजनी खूप सारी लिक्विडिटी इन्फ्यूज केली. आता ही लिक्विडिटी मेडिकल ट्रीटमेंटसाठी न जाता अनफॉर्च्युनेटली कॅपिटल मार्केटमध्ये गेली. So there was a lot of supply in terms of liquidity which went into capital markets across the globe. And it's just because of demand and supply, markets rallied big time. म्हणजे आपण जे लहानपणी ऐकतो की पैसे कमवायला घाम गाळावा लागतो, काम करायला लागतं. Just imagine during COVID, we all of us were sitting at home, factories were shut, all the activities were practically stopped and people were still making money. Right? Which is unbelievable, right? म्हणजे फॅक्टरीज बंद आहेत पण त्या कंपनीचा स्टॉक वरती जातो. This is only because of excessive liquidity which was available and which was been made available and which instead of going for the medical treatment went into capital markets. जेव्हा कोविड आपल्यापासनं तो निघत गेला तेव्हा सगळ्या गव्हर्मेंट्सना एक मोठा इश्यू सगळ्यांसमोर आला. आणि सगळ्या जणांना हे माहिती असेल की टुडे द होल वर्ल्ड इज ग्रॅपलिंग विथ व्हॉट, विच इश्यू, विच इज अन इन्फ्लेशन इश्यू. सो आपण जे नॉर्मल इकॉनॉमिक्समध्ये शिकतो की इन्फ्लेशन कसं होतं, दिस टाईम द इन्फ्लेशन वॉज वे टू डिफरंट. दिस वॉज अन आर्टिफिशियली इंजेक्टेड इन्फ्लेशन बिकॉज ऑफ एक्सेसिव्ह लिक्विडिटी दॅट वॉज बीन प्रोव्हायडेड बाय अक्रॉस द ग्लोब. आणि हे इन्फ्लेशन वेगवेगळ्या पॉकेट्समधून दुसऱ्या पॉकेट्समध्ये जायला सुरुवात झाली. सो इनिशियली हे इन्फ्लेशन व्हाईट गुड्समध्ये आलं. आणि व्हाईट गुड्समध्ये का आलं? कारण मी घरी बसलो आहे, आज माझ्याकडे एकच ए सी आहे, मी वर्क फ्रॉम होम करतो आहे, मला दुसऱ्या रूममध्ये पण ए सी हवा. सो ए सीची डिमांड वाढली. माझ्याकडे मेड्स येत नाही आहे, वॉशिंग मशीन नाही आहे किंवा आहे पण ते छोटं आहे, हायर कपॅसिटीचं वॉशिंग मशीन पाहिजे, वॉशिंग मशीनची डिमांड गेली. माझ्याकडे छोटा टी व्ही आहे, मला घरी बसून नेटफ्लिक्स बघायचं आहे, मोठा टी व्ही पाहिजे. सो ऑल दोज व्हाईट गुड डिमांड्स केप्ट ऑन इन्क्रीजिंग अँड द होल सप्लायर ऑफ these white goods before COVID was, who was the manufacturer to the whole world or by and large continues to be, is China. आणि जे पूर्ण ट्रेड आपण जे म्हणतो ट्रेड बिटवीन टू कंट्रीज, तो सप्लाय होता तो थांबला बिकॉज ट्रेड्स वर स्टॉप्ड बिकॉज ऑफ कोविड. त्याच्यामुळे माझ्याकडे डिस्पोजेबल इन्कम वाढलं बिकॉज द मनीज विच इज बिन गिवन बाय गव्हर्नमेंट टू मी, आय हॅव इन्व्हेस्टेड इन द कॅपिटल मार्केट, इट अप्रिशिएटेड, सो आय हॅव अ हायर डिस्पोजेबल इन्कम. ॲट द सेम टाईम आय कॅन डू एनिथिंग, म्हणजे मी ते स्पेंड करूच शकत नाही ना. मी हॉटेलमध्ये जाऊन खाऊ शकतो किंवा ना दुसऱ्या देशात जाऊन फिरून येऊ शकतो. द ओनली थिंग आय कुड स्पेंड ऑन दॅट मनी इज फॉर बेटरमेंट ऑफ माय हाऊस होल्ड लिव्हिंग. आणि हे आर्टिफिशियल डिमांड ह्या व्हाईट गुड्समध्ये क्रिएट झालं. सप्लाय कमी, डिमांड जास्ती, पैसे हातात जास्ती. सो ह्या सगळ्या प्राइजेस, या सगळ्या गोष्टींच्या प्राइजेस वरती जात गेल्या आणि पीपल वर रेडी टू पे द इन्फ्लेटेड प्राइस टू बाय दोज गुड्स सर्व्हिसेस ऑल्सो. इंडियामध्ये पण सर, इंडियामध्ये तुम्हाला जे पैसे मेडिकलसाठी गेले, मेडिकलसाठी बऱ्याच जणांना एड झाल्या, बऱ्याच जणांना आल्या. एंड कन्झ्युमरपर्यंत आपल्याकडे मे नॉट तुमच्या बँक अकाउंटमध्ये नाही आले, पण इन द ॲडव्हान्स कंट्रीज पीपल हॅव गॉट मनी इन देअर बँक अकाउंट ऑल्सो. बट आय विल आन्सर युअर क्वेश्चन सबसिक्वेंटली, अलाव मी टू कम्प्लीट द प्रेझेंटेशन. त्याच्यानंतर जेव्हा कोविड हळूहळू संपायला लागला, देन लॉकडाऊन ओपनड अप आणि हा जो इन्फ्लेशनरी ट्रेंड होता जो व्हाईट गुड्समधून, तो दुसरीकडे गेला, विच इज इसेन्शियली अ हॉस्पिटॅलिटी इंडस्ट्री. लोक बाहेर जाऊन जास्ती खायला लागले, लोक ट्रॅव्हल करायला लागले, अँड सो अँड सो. सो इन्फ्लेशन डिडंट गेट कंट्रोल, इट मूव्ह फ्रॉम वन बास्केट टू अनदर बास्केट. नाउ वेन द इन्फ्लेशन इज हाय, इट्स अ प्रॉब्लेम टू द कंट्री. आणि हा प्रॉब्लेम कसा सॉल्व करायचा? द सिम्पलेस्ट थिंग टू सॉल्व दिस इशू इज टू कीप increasing your interest rates in the economy, and that is what the world started doing. यूएसमध्ये न भूतो न भविष्यती इतके इंटरेस्ट रेट्स वरती गेले. यूएसचं इन्फ्लेशन जवळपास जे आपण म्हणतो तिकडे इन्फ्लेशन नव्हतंच, ते जवळपास 5-6-7% गेलं. इंडिया वी वर हॅबिच्युअल, आपल्याला काय असं फार वेगळं वाटलं नाही, कारण इंडियाज लॉंग टर्म इन्फ्लेशन फॉर लास्ट 10-20 years has been always in the range of that 6 to 8%. At the peak, it reached to about 9.5%, that too only for one quarter. So Indiansना असं काही फार वेगळं वाटलं नाही, and that's the reason India was anyway secluded with this whole inflationary environment which the whole world was facing. जेव्हा इंटरेस्ट रेट वरती जातात तेव्हा इस्पेशली द US, तेव्हा बाकीच्या कंट्रीज, बिकॉज द US हॅज द स्ट्रॉंगेस्ट करन्सी, बाकीच्या बँक्स हॅड टू फॉलो द सूट what US फेडरल गव्हर्नमेंट हॅज डन. आणि त्याच्यामुळे सगळ्या कंट्रीजनी आपले इंटरेस्ट रेट वाढवायला सुरुवात केली. इंडिया कुड हॅव नॉट डन, बट देन आर करन्सी वुड हॅव बीन अंडर ट्रिमेंडस प्रेशर. आपला जो रुपया जो पडला तो आणखीन पडला असता. सो यू हॅव टू बी इन लाईन विथ वॉट द लार्जेस्ट इकॉनॉमी इन द कंट्री डज. सो ही जी एक्सेसिव्ह लिक्विडिटी आहे, हे इन्फ्लेशन कंट्रोल करायला लिक्विडिटी परत सकाउट करण्याची एक मोहीम सुरू झाली. आणि टुडे अक्रॉस द ग्लोब यू हॅव सीन द इंटरेस्ट रेट्स आर ॲट पीक. नाव एक इन्फ्लेक्शन पॉईंट असा असतो, आपण जे म्हणतो की गव्हर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडियाचा पेपर, व्हॉट इज GOI पेपर, व्हॉट डज इट मीन? इट मीन्स दॅट द गव्हर्नमेंट इज बॉरोईंग मनी अँड दे हॅव टू पे द इंटरेस्ट ऑन दॅट. वेन द इंटरेस्ट रेट गोज अप, द इंटरेस्ट कॉस्ट for that particular government also goes up. Today we are at an inflection point wherein the US Treasury, if US continues to rate hikes, US Treasury will be under pressure, immense pressure, and they cannot beyond the point serve the interest component on the debt that they have borrowed. So equity markets are always ahead of bond markets, or always ahead of majority of the things what happens in economy. So आज काय झालंय, दोन गोष्टी. एक म्हणजे इन्फ्लेशन कंट्रोलमध्ये आलं आहे बाय अँड लार्ज बिकॉज ऑफ द इंटरेस्ट रेट्स हॅव गॉन अप. दुसरी गोष्ट, इंटरेस्ट रेट ह्याच्या पुढे वरती वाढणार नाहीत इज वॉट इक्विटी मार्केट्स आर फॅक्टरिंग इन. आणि थर्ड, आपण जे म्हणतो ऑप्टिमिझम, की इंटरेस्ट रेट सायकल रिव्हर्स होईल. ते इमिडिएट होणार नाही, बट अगेन ॲज आय सेड, इक्विटी मार्केट्स डू फॅक्टर इन अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स अहेड ऑफ टाइम्स. सो मार्केट्स आर इन जनरल फॅक्टरिंग across the globe. You will sooner than later see the reversal of this interest rate cycle. So market is pricing in that, and that's where this whole rally has now started seeing. So India थोडंसं सेपरेट आहे. सगळे मार्केट्स करेक्ट झाले. इंडियन मार्केट्स लास्ट बारिंग 6-7 months रिटर्न सोडले. तर इंडियन मार्केट्स वर ऑल्सो व्हेरी मच फ्लॅट. सो बाकी सगळे मार्केट्स पडले. इंडियन इंडायसेस बिकेम फ्लॅट. सो त्याच्यात पण आपण अल्फा जनरेट केला. आणि ह्याचं एक स्ट्रॉंग रिझन म्हणजे आपला कॉर्पोरेट गव्हर्नन्स, आपल्या स्ट्रॉंग बँकिंग सिस्टम्स आणि डोमेस्टिक लिक्विडिटी. जे रिटेल इन्व्हेस्टर्स जे पार्टिसिपेट करत राहिले, सुजित सरांनी सांगितलं म्युच्युअल फंड एक वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट व्हेइकल फॉर दॅट. एक सिस्टमॅटिक इन्व्हेस्टमेंट प्लॅन सगळ्यांनी ऐकला असेल, SIP ज्याला आपण म्हणतो. आजच्या तारखेला या SIPच्या माध्यमातून इक्विटी मार्केटमध्ये पर मंथ जवळपास 14,500 कोटी रुपये दर महिना येतात. सो दिस होल स्ट्रॉंग सपोर्ट ऑफ डोमेस्टिक इन्व्हेस्टर्स participating in equity in a very, very disciplinary manner has helped our markets to stay put, right? At the same time, माहिती असेल सगळ्यांना, पण मी परत बेनिफिट ऑफ डाऊटसाठी सगळ्यांना सांगतो की हे जे EPFO आणि PFOचे पैसे आहेत ते पण इक्विटी मार्केटमध्ये इन्व्हेस्ट होतात. आणि दे इन्व्हेस्ट अबाउट 5 to 7% ऑफ देअर एव्हरी मंथली कॉर्पस इन टू इक्विटी मार्केट. सो हे जे दोन कॉम्बिनेशन आहेत त्याच्यामुळे डोमेस्टिक लिक्विडिटी इतकी स्ट्रॉंग होती दॅट एन्शोर्ड दॅट इंडियन इंडायसेस डिडंट फेल. आणि मग जी रिकव्हरी सुरू झाली त्या रिकव्हरीमध्ये देर आर लॉट ऑफ पॉझिटिव्ह थिंग्स दॅट द मार्केट्स इज नाव अँटिसिपेटिंग, राईट. आणि इक्विटी मार्केट्स दोन तर्फे बघायला लागतं. एक म्हणजे ऑल टाईम हाय इन टर्म्स ऑफ ॲब्सल्यूट नंबर, बट ॲट द सेम टाईम मार्केट्स आर ऑल्सो टू बी लुक्ड फ्रॉम एन व्हॅल्युएशन पॉईंट ऑफ व्ह्यू, की व्हॅल्युएशन मार्केटचं एक्सपेन्सिव्ह आहे का फक्त ॲब्सल्यूट नंबरवरती चाललं आहे. सो जी मागची आपण रॅली बघितली, आय थिंक लास्ट टाईम दिस सेम सिच्युएशन ऑफ मार्केट्स ऑल टाईम हाय हॅपन्ड इन October 21. Right? October 21 was the peak when the markets had reached all time high. त्यावेळेला मार्केटचा जो प्राईस टू अर्निंग होतं दॅट वॉज अबाउट 24 or 25 times फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग, right? So market was giving 25 times valuation to the earning potential of Nifty 50 companies, right? This concept is typically called as PE multiplication, right? You can make money by two ways in equity markets, or you can value the equity markets by two ways. One is by PE multiplication, or second is by earnings growth. ज्या कंपनीज अर्निंग ग्रोथ नंबर्स रिपोर्ट करतात त्या अर्निंग ग्रोथ. सिम्पल एक्झाम्पल, मी एक कंपनी आहे, माझ्या अर्निंग ग्रोथचं एस्टिमेट मी माझ्या ॲन्युअल रिपोर्टमध्ये 10% दिलं. आणि रिसर्च ॲनालिस्ट बिकॉज ऑफ माय बिझनेस मॉडेल, बिकॉज ऑफ माय मॅनेजमेंट, बिकॉज ऑफ माय दिस होल कॉर्पोरेट फिलॉन्थ्रॉफी, सगळ्या गोष्टी लक्षात घेता, माझे फुटप्रिंट्स कंट्रीचे, माझ्या मार्जिन सगळ्या लक्षात घेता मला एक प्रीमियम देतो. अँड दॅट्स वॉट वी कॉल ॲज मल्टिपल्स. सो माझं जर कॉर्पोरेट अर्निंग 10% असेल आणि मला मल्टिपल मिळतो आहे 10%, सो देन अकॉर्डिंगली द व्हॅल्युएशन हॅपन्स. मागच्या पीकला कॉर्पोरेट अर्निंग विजिबिलिटी अजिबात नव्हती, बिकॉज कंपनीज अजून वरती येत होत्या, मॅन्युफॅक्चरिंग ॲक्टिव्हिटीज पिकअप झाल्या नव्हत्या. आत्ताचा जो हाय आहे दॅट इज डिफरंट. सो दॅट वॉज अ PE मल्टिप्लायर. बिकॉज ऑफ PE मल्टिप्लिकेशन द मार्केट्स रीच्ड ऑल टाईम हाय. टुडे the valuations were not justifiable, they were looking slightly expensive. Today, while the markets have reached to all-time high on absolute numbers, there is a corporate earning visibility across the length and breadth of the companies that are listed on the exchange, whether it is large caps, whether it is small caps, or whether it is mid caps. Every sector, no sector is barred. प्रत्येक सेक्टरमध्ये सगळ्या कंपनीजमध्ये कॉर्पोरेट अर्निंगची विजिबिलिटी आहे. सो हा जो बेस आहे हा बेस वरती गेला आणि त्या बेसच्या करस्पॉन्डिंगली मार्केटचं व्हॅल्युएशन वाईज मार्केट ऑल टाईम हायवर नाही आहे. सो हा नंबर प्रत्येक वेळेला दोन्ही बाजूनी बघायचा असतो. युजली आपण एकतर ह्या बाजूनी बघतो किंवा ह्या बाजूनी बघतो, राईट. अँड द बेस्ट वे बिटवीन दीज टू is to not to go with a PE multiplication but look at the earning growths आणि त्याच्या अनुषंगाने मार्केट कुठच्या लेवलला आहे ते बघितलं पाहिजे. सो येस, ॲब्सल्यूट बेसिसवर मार्केट ऑल टाईम हाय आहे, बट फ्रॉम एन व्हॅल्युएशन बेसिसवर काय मार्केट ऑल टाईम आहे? आय डोंट थिंक सो. मार्केट इज नॉट ॲट ऑल टाईम हाय. इट इज ॲट अ, I would say, a reasonably priced market, or I would say one more effective term or acceptable term is the markets are at tolerant levels. They are not looking expensive, they are definitely not cheap, but they are not at all-time high, right? So going forward, we also believe going forward with, I think, 3 potential risks. कारण जेव्हा आपण फॉरवर्ड लुकिंग गायडन्स देतो तेव्हा सगळ्या गोष्टी पॉझिटिव्ह असू शकत नाहीत. काही रिस्क फॅक्टर्स पण फॅक्टर इन करायला लागतात. वाईल द रिस्क फॅक्टर्स टुडे ॲज वी सी आर व्हेरी व्हेरी लिमिटेड, बट दे नीड्स टू बी लुक्ड अँड टेकन इन टू अकाउंट फॉर. पण पहिले मी पॉझिटिव्ह ॲस्पेक्ट सांगतो. वाय वी स्टील बिलीव्ह, आय थिंक इंडिया इज गोइंग टू बी आय थिंक अगेन विल बी एन आउटलायर ॲज कम्पेअर्ड टू ऑल अदर इंडायसेस. जनरली इकॉनॉमी वाढायला 3 इम्पॉर्टंट पिलर्स शुड फायर. आत्तापर्यंत त्यातला फक्त एकच पिलर फायर करत होता, अँड विच वी कॉल्ड ॲज कॅपिटल एक्सपान्शन बाय गव्हर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, राईट. सो कॅपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर वॉज हॅपनिंग एव्हर सिन्स दिस गव्हर्नमेंट केम, अँड प्रायर टू दॅट ऑल्सो लार्जली इन टू रोड्स, पोर्ट्स, rails, and so on and so forth. There was a lullness in terms of corporate capex happening, and there was lullness in terms of the household capex also. Today we are at a point wherein all 3 engines are firing together, and that is the reason why you had seen, other than market taking into account a decline in inflation, taking into account a possibility of interest rate cycle reversing, and this strong 3 pillars firing at the same time. Lot of other indicators are indicating that the India is going to be the next global office, the next global manufacturer to the rest of the country. So I'm sure you all would have heard this whole concept called China plus one. We all say make in India. We all say Atmanirbhar, right? So make in India, don't get confused that this is an India specific thing. There is make in Bangladesh also happening in Bangladesh. There is make in Mexico happening in Mexico. There is make in Vietnam happening in Vietnam. The idea is to detach from China, where the whole world was dependent on, and increasingly every country wants to cut down their over dependency to China and give it and spread it across to other countries. And the countries which are going to be in beneficiaries are the countries which I have just spoken about, including the Southeast Asian countries. India stands out the biggest beneficiary because of only 1 or 2 simple reasons. आपले जे डेमोग्राफिक डिव्हिडंड्स म्हणतो आपण, आपली शेअर पॉप्युलेशन, that itself will ensure that India gets the maximum number of percentage of this entire thing coming from China, and the kind of a talent that India produce or already we have. These 2 strong reasons, even if we get 2% of the domestic also global supply, I think you will see India moving substantially higher from what levels today we are at. Correct? The other aspect is lot of companies today that we speak, being in global organization, they have already started moving their head offices from Hong Kong to India. So India is going to be the next corporate office for the Asia Pacific guys. India is going to be the next manufacturing hub for the rest of the world. With this, keeping in mind, the government of India, or today's government, has accordingly acted in line with this whole trend that the whole world is anticipating, moving away from China. As government ने काय केलंय, if you notice it, the government is imposing, they are doing a stick and carrot approach. What they are doing, they are putting higher number of import duties on the things that you want to procure outside India. At the same time, if you want to manufacture those things, they are giving you incentivization, and that is what is called this PLI. The मागच्या वेळेला बजेटमध्ये तुम्ही ऐकलं असाल that PLI initiatives, which is production linked incentive plan, is exactly to do this. This whole आत्मनिर्भर, की उद्या समजा अशा काही गोष्टी परत झाल्या तर we should not be affected by only one country which is supplying to the rest of the world. We have to have an ecosystem which is going to be self-sufficient आपण जे म्हणतो, आणि that is where this whole आत्मनिर्भर concept came. आणि त्या अनुषंगाने बऱ्याचशा गोष्टी इंडियामध्ये सुरू झाल्या आहेत. एक क्लासिक एक्झाम्पल, दोन एक्झाम्पल देतो. बिफोर कोविड इन 2019 जो AC आपण वापरतो त्याच्यात जो कॉम्प्रेसर असतो, 90% of those compressors India used to import from China. Today we manufacture 90% of compressors. About 2 years back, India used to be net importer of mobiles. Today India started exporting mobiles. Our import bill on mobile has drastically come down. These are just few examples. Government is talking about this whole new, I would say a revolutionary thing in terms of the way power is getting generated. A lot of things has already started in terms of solar, in terms of hydrogen gas, in terms of green energy and so on and so forth. So इतक्या गोष्टी चालल्या आहेत, आणि हे सगळ्या ज्या पहिले आपण बाहेरच्या कंट्रीजवर डिपेंडंट होतो, that is no longer the case. It is going to happen in India. Whether it is semiconductor chips, whether it is electronic manufacturing, बऱ्याचशा गोष्टी ज्या आपल्याला माहिती नाहीत. हे उद्या समजा आत्ता आपण जे एनर्जी वापरतो इज बाय बर्निंग कोल. नाउ इमॅजिन सोलार ग्रिड जेव्हा येईल तेव्हा हे जे ट्रान्समिशन होते इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, आय एम नॉट अ इंजिनियर, बट जेव्हा ही इलेक्ट्रिसिटी ट्रान्समिट होते त्याचं जे तुमचं ग्रिड असतं, दॅट ग्रिड हॅज टू कम्प्लिटली चेंज. सो सगळ्या सिस्टीम्स अकॉर्डिंगली चेंज होतील, आणि ह्या सगळ्या इट्स गोइंग टू बी मेक इन इंडिया. So I think the economy is at such an inflection point that all three big pillars is, or it's already firing, but they'll fire more. एक simple example सांगतो, digitalization किती effective आहे. आणि the whole process म्हणजे तुम्ही जर पहिल्यापासून बघत गेलात तर सगळ्यात पहिलं काय केलं, ह्यांनी जनधन अकाउंट ओपन केले विदाउट झिरो बॅलन्स. So they wanted to ensure that all Indians should have their bank account, so that whenever these subsidies should get passed on, that मधलं जो करप्शन होतं ते पूर्ण एलिमिनेट झालं. प्लस यू हॅव द डेटाबेस. त्याच्यानंतर GST इम्प्लिमेंट झालं, अँड देर आर स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म्स विच हॅव टेकन इंडिया फ्रॉम ऑब्वियसली मल्टी स्टेप्स अपवर्ड्स ॲज कम्पेअर्ड टू वॉट इंडिया वॉज. सो गोईंग फॉरवर्ड ऑल्सो एक एक्झाम्पल मी परत म्हणतो. आय रिमेंबर की जेव्हा मी माझं पहिले हाऊसिंग लोन घेतलेलं तेव्हा आय हॅड टू गो टू 5 डिफरंट बँक्स. आय हॅव टू गिव्ह माय फॉर्म 16, मंथली सॅलरीज, माझ्याकडे कॅश बॅलन्स किती आहे आणि बाकीच्या गोष्टी काय. आणि त्याच्यानंतर बँकेने 3-4 महिने लागल्यानंतर मला लोन अप्रूव्ह केलं. टुडे द लोन म्हणजे बजाज फिनान्सला आपल्याला नाही म्हणायला लागतं, त्याचे कॉल आपण बंद करतो. लाईक इन्स्टंट लोन इन 1 minute. आय मीन थिंग्स हॅव कम्प्लिटली चेंज्ड because the delinquency ratio in India has gone down dramatically. The disposable income, the per capita income, सगळ्याच गोष्टी इम्प्रूव्ह झाल्या आहेत, and that is a reflection of at a country level we have progressed. आपण म्हणत होतो लहानपणी आपण शॉपमध्ये जायचो की ते काय ते म्हणायचे, आज नगद कल उधार. टुडे द ॲडव्हर्टिजमेंट्स आर कमिंग की यू बाय टुडे अँड पे टुमॉरो. You look how different, it's a complete 180-degree change. Right? So I'm saying there is a better quality of credit available. There is a disposable income which is now substantially high as compared to what it was, and it is going to go up in the coming days. So I don't think so one should be worried about whether the markets have reached all-time high or no. हे आज कल और आज तसं येते. काल पण मार्केट कधीतरी ऑल टाईम हायवर होतं, आज पण हायवर आहे आणि उद्या पण हायवर असेल. दिस जर्नी इज व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट, राईट. सो जस्ट टू गिव्ह यू एन एक्झाम्पल, गेल्या 25 वर्षात निफ्टी 50 हॅज गिवन यू अबाउट 12% कंपाऊंडेड ॲन्युअलाइज रिटर्न्स. निफ्टी 50 ओनली. निफ्टीच्या 50 कंपनीजमध्ये जर तुम्ही इन्व्हेस्ट केले असते पैसे तर दॅट लास्ट 25 years निफ्टी वुड हॅव गिवन यू अबाउट 12% कंपाऊंडेड ॲन्युअलाइज्ड. आउट ऑफ दिस 25 years, इफ समबडी वुड हॅव मिस्ड ओनली 40 ट्रेडिंग डेज विच आर बेस्ट डेज, 25 वर्षात 40 दिवस फक्त. इमॅजिन वॉट रिटर्न्स यू वुड हॅव मेड इन्स्टेड ऑफ 12%. 1.5. So it's important to give time to the market rather than timing the market. We represent mutual fund industry आणि मंथली डेटा येतो. मागच्या महिन्याचा डेटा आला. इयर ऑन इयर म्युच्युअल फंड इंडस्ट्री हॅव ॲडेड अबाउट 36 lakhs न्यू इन्व्हेस्टर्स, राईट. आणि आम्ही सेलिब्रेट करतो. ऑब्वियसली इट्स अ गुड थिंग टू सेलिब्रेट फॉर. But I always look at the numbers. The way I've told you, equity markets needs to be looked at two different ways. One is absolute number and second from valuation. Likewise, mutual fund industry have added 36 lakhs new investors. Jungli Rummy 2 crore. Dream 11 10 crore. I'm like, you are ready to put money in gambling and you don't understand the asset class which creates a phenomenal wealth for you. People want to become rich, but they want to become rich very quickly. That is 1 out of million. एवढं नशीब पाहिजे. Otherwise you have to give time to the market, and markets have proven in last how many years that equity is the only asset class which not only beats the inflation but it also creates a wealth for you. And how do you do that? That's the best way. So these are my market views. I don't think so one should be worried about the levels of the market. Markets are definitely not available at a discount, but they are definitely expensive either, right? So the absolute number कडे बघू नका. एक तुमचा गोल काय आहे, तुम्हाला कुठे जायचं आहे, व्हॉट इज युअर टार्गेटेड व्हॅल्यू, तुम्ही कशासाठी इन्व्हेस्ट करताय. अँड दीज आर सम ऑफ द बिहेवियरल ॲस्पेक्ट्स दॅट वी ऑलवेज ट्राय अँड कम्युनिकेट टू ऑल ऑफ यू. की वॉरेन बफे जो सगळ्यात आज श्रीमंत इन्व्हेस्टर आहे, ही स्टार्टेड इज जर्नी आपल्यासारखाच होता तो पण. वयाच्या 50व्या वर्षीनंतर त्याची वेल्थ मल्टीफोल्ड झाली. So he gave time to the market, and he timed the market. So every time, हे म्हणतो ना आपण की ते आपण सकाळी ह्याच्या अगोदर आपण ती सुंदर एक प्रेयर ऐकली. बट it's our behavioral aspect that will determine the end results. Markets will do their job. The fund managers will do their job. असेल हरी तर देईल खाटल्यावरी, ते चालत नाही. वी ऑल्सो हॅव टू ॲक्ट, अँड आय थिंक द डिसिप्लिनरी ॲक्शन इज द मोस्ट इफेक्टिव्ह ॲक्शन फॉर एनीबडी अँड एव्हरीबडी टू create wealth for themselves. Obviously the financial advisors likes of Sujit, he is the financial doctor. अहम ब्रह्मास्मी पण चुकीचं आहे की मला सगळं माहिती आहे. कारण किती जणं आपण ताप आल्यानंतर स्वतः मेडिकल शॉपमध्ये जाऊन पॅरासिटामॉल घेतो. एकदा घ्याल, दुसऱ्यांदा ताप आला तर घाबरायला होतं ना, काहीतरी दुसरं असेल. यू गो टू द डॉक्टर, राईट? बट वी डोंट डू इट विथ आवर वेल्थ. वेल्थ म्हटल्यावर मला सगळं येतं, आय नो इट एव्हरीथिंग. नो, यू डोंट. द थिंग्स विच आर नॉट गुड फॉर यू कॅन बी गुड फॉर मी अँड वायसे वर्सा. आणि हे मी जेव्हा सांगतो तेव्हा मला क्वेश्चन्स येतात, अरे जी गोष्ट चांगली आहे ती चांगलीच आहे ना, मग ती वाईट कशी असू शकते? देन आय गिव्ह अ व्हेरी सिम्पल एक्झाम्पल की गुलाबजाम चांगली डिश आहे, अतिशय सुंदर डिश आहे, माझ्यासाठी चांगली आहे, डायबिटिक पेशंटसाठी चांगली नाही आहे. सो थिंग्स विच इज गुड फॉर समबडी मे नॉट बी गुड फॉर यू. हू इज गोइंग टू डिटरमाइन दॅट इज डॉक्टर्स लाईक सुजित वायगंडकर. So you have to consult, open up your entire profile, and based on that, these people will diagnose and appropriately suggest you what should be your asset allocation, how much risk that you are able to take, and so forth. Right? So asset allocation is important. The vehicle which we strongly recommend for the audience like us is mutual fund, and I'll quickly tell you the advantage. This some of the slides which we have already spoken, so I'm not going to take much of time on that, but these are some of the three concepts which mutual fund madhe, karan last time I saw that the audience here is what is this, is slightly on the higher side in terms of the age. So I've in my presentation, as far as the behavioral side, other than the market slide, I've said ki boss, things have changed, your approach also should change. And what has by and large changed? Erstwhile, retirement was fixed at 60. आपण म्हणायचो की रे माझी रिटायरमेंट जवळ येते आहे, राईट? 60 was the retirement. Lifespan was 70-75 years. Retired life therefore was only 10 to 15 years. Again, ह्या जनरेशनमध्ये माझ्या मते बऱ्याच लोकांना पेन्शन मिळत असावं, आणि जर असेल तर आय थिंक वी आर व्हेरी जेलस. आय एम व्हेरी जेलस बिकॉज इट्स नॉट ओनली पेन्शन, इट इज इन्फ्लेशन ॲडजस्टेड पेन्शन. मग 7वा 8वा 9वा 10वं कमिशन सगळं मिळेल तुम्हाला. ओके, अँड वी ग्रॅपल की बॉस काय करायचं नंतर, आम्हाला तर काही नाही आहे. सो सॉरी फॉर दॅट, बट आय थिंक दॅट जादूची छडी तुमच्याकडे ज्यांच्याकडे आहे, यू शुड बी कन्सिडरिंग युअर सेल्फ एक्स्ट्रीमली लकी. वी यूज टू लिव्ह इन जॉईंट फॅमिलीज. We no avdo but we were dependent on our children. We were normal expenses आपल्याला माहिती होते, आणि we were banking on pension stroke traditional avenues. What is changed now is if you talk to young people, they want to retire early. इकडे खूप सिनियर सिटीजन्स आहेत, त्यांची मुली जर तुम्ही विचारला तर ते म्हणा बाबा मला तर मी आय विल रिटायर ॲट 40. आय सेड व्हॉट आर यू इवन टॉकिंग अबाउट? सो त्यांना हे सगळं वेगळंच आहे, म्हणजे इट्स लाईक सम फेरी टेल टू देम. सो दे वॉन्ट टू रिटायर अर्ली. युअर लाईफ स्पॅन हॅज गॉन अप. टुडे द लाईफ एक्सपेक्टन्सी इज बिकम 90 years. सो इमॅजिन इफ यू आर रिटायरिंग ॲट 60, यू गोना लिव्ह 30 years विदाउट इन्कम, राईट? न्यूक्लियर फॅमिलीज, no dependent on children anymore. Aspirational expenses, not basic one. Even today, a 75-year-old getting influenced, and he or she wants to go and eat pasta and pizza and go and visit international destinations. Right? That's an aspirational expenses. हे पहिले नव्हतं, हे आत्ता आहे. So we have to admit that. And the assets and investments have moved to traditional and market-linked investments. This is just another representation. हे आपण बोललो, डिस्कस केलं की इन्फ्लेशन इन इंडिया लॉंग टर्म बेसिसवर 60% होतं. सो युअर ॲसेट क्लास इन विच यू इन्व्हेस्ट has to meaningfully beat this inflation. At the same time, it should create wealth. So which are those asset classes typically? The asset classes are these. So if you look at the 10-year GSEC, which is in parallel to bank deposits, PSU bank deposits, those have given you about 6.97, just about inflation. ह्याच्यात 30% काढून टाका, so you are below inflation. Gold has given you about 12.35, but look at the markets, which is equity, has given you about 16.3%. So it has beaten the inflation and it has created wealth for you. Falling interest rates, ह्या सगळेजण इकडे बाय अँड लार्ज लोक हे बघितलं असेल 13% बँक एफ डी स्टेट बँक ऑफ इंडिया. वेअर इज इट टुडे? If India moves, so India was an underdeveloping economy. We are now developing economy. Once you move towards the developed economy, this will continue to go down. Right? People have fascination, craze for having multiple houses. Right? मला तर कधी कळलं नाही का, कारण इथे आता किती वर आहे मला वाटतं इकडे काहीतरी हाऊसिंग लोन इज ॲट आय थिंक समवेअर अराउंड 7.5-8%. करेक्ट? लुक एट दिस. भाडं किती मिळतं आहे बघा. दिस इज युअर रेंटल यील्ड्स. सो एक तर कर्ज घ्यायचं, ते चक्रवाढ व्याजाने कर्ज फेडायचं आणि त्याच्या अगेन्स्ट रिटर्न मिळत आहेत हे, आणि प्रॉपर्टी ॲप्रिसिएशन हे इक्विटी मार्केटपेक्षा खालीच आहे. हे आपल्या डोक्यात आहे की फक्त माझी रिअल इस्टेट प्राईस वाढली आहे, तेवढेच पैसे जर तुम्ही, आय एम नॉट सेईंग ओईंग अ हाऊस इज शुड नॉट बी युअर प्रायोरिटी. अगेन आय मे रिपीट, मल्टिपल हाऊसेस इज आय थिंक अ क्राईम इन फायनान्शियल पार्लन्स. मग माझ्याकडे दुसरं पण घर आहे, अरे पण मग तिकडे तिसरं पण आहे, मग माझं तिकडे एक वीकेंड डेस्टिनेशन पण आहे, अरे मग गावाला माझी जमीन पण आहे. आय सेड व्हॉट? सो दीज आर द रेंटल यील्ड्स. बट हे सगळं असून सुद्धा वेअर डू वी स्टँड टुडे? इंडियन पॉप्युलेशन 49% इन इक्विटी प्रॉपर्टी. इक्विटीज इज ओनली लेस दॅन 5%. डिस्पाईट ऑफ वॉट वी स्पोक की 14,500 crores ऑफ SIP मनी गोईंग इन टू म्युच्युअल फंड्स. इतके लोक सगळे पार्टिसिपेट करतात. डोमेस्टिक लिक्विडिटी इज फॅन्टॅस्टिक. व्हॉट्स द रियालिटी ऑफ लाईफ? is only 4.5% is going into equity. Now just imagine if this moves to even 10%, look where the markets will. And now FIIs have pulled out money. They have come back. In last 3 months, the FIIs have started coming back. India has already reached on the 5th position as far as the market cap and the GDP is concerned. We are just behind Germany and Japan. Once we cross them and becomes third largest economy, our weightage in those, when FIIs allocate money, goes up. So the propensity of money coming back to India will be substantially higher what it was earlier. So everything is looking good. फक्त आपल्याला disciplinary approach follow करायला लागेल. And these are some of the things which I don't want to talk about. I've already said. Solution, I think it's the mutual fund. ह्याच्यासारखं सिम्पल, ट्रान्सपरंट, वेल रेग्युलेटेड व्हेकल कुठेही मिळणार नाही. एक्झॉटिक प्रोडक्ट्स पण असतात अवेलेबल. तुमच्यावर आहे की तुम्हाला BP आपलं वरती खाली जास्ती व्हायला पाहिजे का आपलं सरळ मार्गाने, ते म्हणतात ना, ससा तो ससा जसा कापूस जसा त्याने कासवाची पैज लावली, वेगे वेगे धावू डोंगरावर जाऊ. स्लो अँड स्टडी विन्स द रेस. सो इफ यू डोंट वॉन्ट टू मच ऑफ BP गोईंग अप अँड डाऊन, आय थिंक दिस इज द बेस्ट प्लॅटफॉर्म. वेल देर आर अदर, आय एम नॉट सेईंग दोज आर बॅड. You have right from private equity to angel investing to PMSs to alternate investing. I think for the retail investors, if you want to keep things simple, boring but effective, this is the one. Nobody can replace this, right? The 3 things which most importantly the mutual fund gives you is, the first is systematic investment plan. We discussed about it. This is a disciplinary manner to accumulate your wealth, and everybody in their respective age has the different priorities. 90 वर्षाचा माणूस, त्याला तुम्ही सांगितलं की मैं आपका पैसा 10 साल में डबल कर दूंगा, तो म्हणाला क्या बात कर रहे हो, मैं रहने वाला हूँ क्या? So that guy is interested into protecting his wealth and pass it on to the next generation. At the same time wants to maintain his standard of living. That's the decumulation phase. right? So there are different means and ways that you can achieve your accumulation phase, your decumulation phase, and wealth accumulation, so de-risking by doing this systematic transfer plan. I'm sure Sujit subsequently will give you details of how this works, but this is just an example of rupee cost averaging. मे 2003ला सेन्सेक्स होता 2967 वर, मे 23ला तो 62,622 वर आहे. जर SIP केली असती कोणी, लुक ॲट ॲव्हरेज बाईंग प्राईस काय आहे, फक्त 15,000. So SIP gives you that rupee cost averaging benefit and value cost averaging benefit. It's the most powerful way to invest, and it's not meant for ज्याच्याकडे पैसे कमी आहेत तो SIP करेल. It's a concept. 10,000ची SIP कराल तर आउटकम जी येईल, आणि लाखाची कराल त्या आउटकमवर एक शून्य आणखीन तुम्हाला ॲड करायचं. दॅट्स अबाउट इट. इट्स अ मॅथ. सो इट्स अ कॉन्सेप्ट. इट्स नॉट मेंट फॉर people who has a relatively lower disposable income. Starting early is very important. एक example आम्ही share करतो, आणि you can share it with either your colleagues, your daughters, son, whoever you want to. This gentleman started investing at the age of 25. Monthly savings 5,000 rupees. Investment done till age of 55, so he would have invested 18 lakhs of rupees. Let's assume three different scenarios. At the rate of 8% returns, his accumulated amount 18 lakhs would have become 75 lakhs. At 10% returns, accumulated value is 114 lakhs, 1 crore 14 lakhs, आणि 12% his amount 1,76 लाख झाली. Right? Disciplinary investments per month 5,000 rupees for so many years. Simple. दुसरा माणूस, त्याचाच कलिग, त्यांनी 20 वर्ष लेट इन्व्हेस्टमेंट सुरू केली. ॲट द एज ऑफ 45 ही ऑल्सो इन्व्हेस्टेड टिल एज ऑफ 55. तो म्हणाला की मी मॅच करतो 18 लाख. फॉर दॅट ही डिड मंथली इन्स्टॉलमेंट ऑफ 15,000. अगेन विथ द सेम अँटिसिपेटेड रिटर्न्स, 8%, 10%, 12%. Look at the value of investing, how different it is. 35 lakhs versus 1 crore 76 lakhs. This is because of power of compounding. So there is no tomorrow for investing. Today is the investing. These all returns are only for illustration purpose. Examples आहेत, ह्याच्यात कुठेही इंडिकेटिव्ह कोणी सांगत नाही की पुढे जाऊन इक्विटी मार्केट 8% देतील का 10% देतील. I mean, you can tweak the numbers. This is just the math. The message that we always wanted to give: start early, and how the power of compounding brilliantly works for you. Last but not the least, for wealth decumulation, लोक अजूनही बँक FDवर विश्वास ठेवतात. म्युच्युअल फंडमध्ये अशा बऱ्याचशा स्कीम्स आहेत ज्या आपल्याला दोन्ही फ्लेवर देतात, फिक्स्ड इन्कम ॲज वेल ॲज इक्विटी. And we typically advise the retired or retiree corpus to get parked in such vehicles. Again, where, how much, the doctor will tell you. Right? But look at the example. Since it's an hybrid kind of a thing, we have assumed on a long-term basis the scheme will give you 8% returns. आपल्याला सस्टेन करायचं आहे आपलं स्टँडर्ड ऑफ लिव्हिंग. आय हॅव रिटायर्ड कॉर्पस, वन टाईम मला मिळाले. Withdrawal rate is 4%. Look at this illustration, and this is again an illustration. This also is linked to market. ह्याच्यात वरती खाली उतार चढाव होणार. But if you look at the 10-year period, amount withdrawn 4%, 1.5 कोटी रुपये समजा आत्ता इन्व्हेस्ट केलेत, आणि 4%नी इयरली विड्रॉवल प्लॅन तुम्ही घेतलात. अज्युम तुमचा मंथली एक्सपेन्सेस 50,000 आहे. सो यू विड्रॉ 6 lakhs rupees per year. Divide by 12 is 50,000 per month. You would have withdrawn 60 lakhs at the end of 10 years. Capital appreciation झालं असतं at the rate of 8%, 91.47 lakhs. At the end of 10 year, after withdrawing 60 lakhs of rupees, your corpus would have been 2.41 crores. Right? पण ह्या गोष्टी तेव्हा पॉसिबल आहेत जेव्हा तुम्ही वेळ द्याल. उद्या समजा we are dealing in equity markets. Can equity markets go down 30% in 1 month? हे सगळं भाषण ऐकल्यानंतर उद्या समजा एका महिन्यानंतर मार्केट 30% खाली गेलं, हाऊ मेनी ऑफ यू विल रिडीम मनी? कारण 100चे ऑलरेडी 150 झाले आहेत, मार्केट रॅली झालं आहे. आता 150चे परत 120 होतील. आपण तेव्हा म्हणतो की 120 ते 80 व्हायच्या आत मला पहिले बाहेर जाऊ दे. दॅट इज वेअर दॅट इन्फ्लेक्शन पॉईंट कम्स. जो माणूस तिथे आणखीन 20 रुपये टाकतो ना, त्याचं गेम पूर्ण वेगळा होतं. सो जर गरज नसेल आणि गोल जर अचीव झाला नसेल, ज्या गोलसाठी इन्व्हेस्ट केलेत, तर आय थिंक यू हॅव टू गिव्ह टाईम टू द मार्केट अँड सो अँड सो फोर्थ. सो दिस इज अन एक्झाम्पल ऑफ SIP डिक्युम्युलेशन. लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट, आय थिंक आय एम डन विथ माय टाईम गिवन. हे सगळ्यात महत्त्वाचं आहे. मोस्ट इन्व्हेस्टर्स, आपण जे सगळे इकडे आहोत, are smart, intelligent, hardworking, and have all the knowledge. मी म्हटलं तसं अहम ब्रह्मास्मी, राईट? प्रॉब्लेम कुठे येतो? दिस इज नॉट बिकॉज दे डोंट नो वॉट टू डू. दिस इज बिकॉज दे डोंट डू वॉट दे नो. माहिती आहे आपल्याला सगळं, पण आपण ते इम्प्लिमेंटच करत नाही. So with that, I think we are in an era wherein we should be thankful to God that our erstwhile generation have seen India moving from an underdeveloping economy to a developing economy. I'm sure we will all see India moving from a developing economy to the border case, if not being called completely as a developed economy, because it takes time, right? So, and I think the kind of opportunities for all of us to create wealth for ourselves and to pass it on to the next generation is, I think, phenomenal. Very positive, with the caveat it's an equity asset class. It will come out with an inherent nature of being volatile. Keep your money based on your goals in those respective asset allocations. Stay disciplined. As they say, investment returns and investor returns. The gap is called behavioral gap. पेपरवर तुम्हाला सगळ्या गोष्टी चांगल्या वाटतील. हाऊ मेनी ऑफ, जस्ट टू गिव्ह एन एक्झाम्पल बिफोर आय कन्क्लूड माय 1 hour slot. मार्केट्स आर ऑल टाईम हाय. सुजितनी सांगितलं स्माइलिंग फेसेस. कोणाच्या इन्व्हेस्टमेंट्स ऑल टाईम हायवर येतात? मार्केट इज डन इट्स पार्ट. यू हॅव नॉट डन इट. That's why your investments are not at all time high. So you should know what's happening, but you should also equally know how you have to demonstrate or how you have to behave as far as your whole financial journey or wealth creation journey is. So with that, I am going to take a pause here. Again, it's always wonderful. I always feel that this is a homely atmosphere that I feel to come and stand in front of you. Thank you for patient listening, and I'll be happy to take any questions. But thank you, Sujit. Thanks a lot.
I'll answer the first question. Is profit booking important, especially when the market is at this level?
It depends upon, again, I would say, coming back to thing. If your goal is not achieved, then there is no question of profit booking, right? If your goal is already achieved, and then you can book some profits. But if you want to reach to some goal, so if I am saving for my retirement and if that corpus is 15 crores of rupees and I have reached to only 7 crores, why would I book the profits? There is no need for me to book the profits. That's point number 1 to look at things. Second is, profit booking is when you are anyways meaningfully invested in the equity markets. आपण 4.5%वरच आहोत सर, अजून 50% तर रिअल इस्टेटमध्ये आहेत. मग कसला प्रॉफिट बुक? इफ यू आर फुल्ली इन्व्हेस्टेड, राईट, देन आय कॅन स्टील से की बॉस यू पार्शली डू द प्रॉफिट बुकिंग. बिकॉज शेवटी इन्व्हेस्ट करतो कशासाठी? एन्जॉय करण्यासाठी पण ना. सो या, सो इट्स गुड टू हॅव सम बिट ऑफ प्रॉफिट बुकिंग अँड देन डू युअर ॲस्पिरेशनल थिंग्स आउट ऑफ दॅट प्रॉफिट्स दॅट यू बुक्ड. बट माझं ऑलरेडी एक्सपोजरच एवढं कमी आहे, त्याच्यात मी प्रॉफिट बुक करीन, मग नंतर परत वाट बघीन, आता उद्या 10% मार्केट खाली येईल, मग जेव्हा मी 6 महिन्यानंतर परत इकडे येईन, परत टॉपिक असेल, मागच्या वेळेला ऑल टाईम हाय होता, आता परत ऑल टाईम आहे, आता काय. सो आय डोंट थिंक सो, बट whether profit booking or the way you want to call it as rebalancing your portfolio, I wouldn't say profit booking is maybe the appropriate word, but I think rebalancing is required. Again, don't be hum brahmasmi in that one. Leave that decision to your financial doctor. He will guide you. Profit booking manje kai. So profit booking is not necessarily coming out of equity asset class completely. You can probably move from a 100% equity product to maybe a 75% equity product. That's also called as rebalancing of portfolio and so on and so forth. And it completely depends, as I said, where your goal has reached, what is your risk ability, and so on and so forth. So there are multiple things which comes, but I don't think so it's either yes or no answer to your question.
You just touched based on this P multiples.
Right.
And general view which I sort of get reading some of the newspapers is that I think we are now almost close to not 24 but around 22 or
21, close to 21, 21, yeah.
So what, as I see and I agree with you that the long-term projection is quite good, but do you think that we have almost reached at the top and from there maybe the market will, I would not say fall but correct, because general, let me complete my question. The consensus is that it hovers between 18 to 23 or 24 and then it reacts.
Correct.
That's what is the data suggests.
Correct.
So that's, I want to have your view on that.
So I'll tell you, interesting slide.
Just add one more person
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
And then I'm talking about a person like me now. I have retired. So even if let's say there is some loss, a loss in profit, you can still make up because your regular income is on. Chalu hai. Abhi it's not there. So
Correct.
You are more circumspect in terms of seeing the losses rather than looking at
Right.
losses. And therefore, if you see the stock market which has rallied in last 2 years, 3 years, the large caps I think have not given the kind of returns which the mid cap and the small caps are.
Yeah.
So with a person like me and the profile like me, what is your advice in terms of where you should invest for wealth creation? What could be the proportion between the large cap, the mid cap and the small cap? Perhaps my question is very much loaded. So
No, it's not loaded. No, it's not. It's not loaded. Firstly, I think data points needs to be looked with a pinch of salt. You look at this data point. You will not find markets are at all-time high from a valuation point of view.
No, I did not say valuation point of view. I said it hovers from 18 to 20.
Agreed.
Okay? So let's say a person like me who is expecting a retirement benefits now, is it the right time to invest or wait till market corrects?
So what if market doesn't correct?
Yeah. But
See, there are two types of correction, sir. And it's again, as Franklin Templeton being in 75-year investment firm, dedicated firm, we always say, one of the 16 rules of Sir John Templeton says, start your investments with a prayer. That's what we did. So end of the day, karma plays. So I'm saying, I agree. I get your point. So it's a classic dilemma because you are just retired.
I'm also, I'm sorry for intervention, because the profile and the age at which I am thinking of making additional investment.
Sure. So it's that's exactly where.
30, I would not have thought.
Absolutely, I am with you on that one, and that's where I think this whole risk profiling comes into play. Now, there are two types of correction markets gives you. One is a price correction, and second is a time correction. Right? Price correction is a sharp correction in indices, wherein we say कि बस भगवान ने वापस भेज दिए बोर्ड करो. The other one is slightly more suffocating, right? Because you anticipate returns, but the returns doesn't come. Correct? You have to wait to get those returns. Now, as far as specific to your question is concerned, it again depends upon how much risk that you are ready to take on the way down in terms of. So, is it going to impact significantly on your overall scheme of things? If you invest 100 rupees today, let's assume you have 100 and you want to invest 100. Now, if market goes down by 30, 40, 50%, for example, will that affect your overall scheme of things? Does your risk-taking ability permits you to do that? If the answer to that is yes, then it doesn't matter. If the answer to that is no, then the next question comes, to what extent I will not get disturbed, A, mentally, stroke physically, and third, in terms of my day-to-day living, standard of living je apan manto. So if that answer to is 20%, then you proportionately allocate that much money into equity. But the moment you say that market, I want to time the market, it just not happen. If somebody comes and tells you, he is outrightly lying to you, sir. माझ्याकडे स्वतःचे 5 विलाज असते स्वित्झर्लंडमध्ये आणि मी आज 12 वाजता संडेला वाईन पीत असतो. जर मला उद्या काय होणार आहे कळत असतं तर. Nobody can time the market. You should know directional wise काय होत आहे काय नाही होत आहे. Right? That I'm completely with you. You just can't say की मला माहितीच नाही मार्केटबद्दल काय चाललंय and this I'm just blindly putting money. That's not the idea. But you can't predict. So the 3 risks that I spoke about, which I didn't cover, one is this whole geopolitical thing. What if the global inflation doesn't get controlled?
Including elections, I mean, all probability Mr. Modi should come back.
Yeah, so that's, I think, politics is very hard subject to discuss and debate, especially what has happened in states now.
More relevant because what's happening? Because one day you find somebody in the ruling party, the next day you find in the opposition.
Correct.
After that again in the ruling.
That's what I'm saying. If we the politicsचा पी जर डिस्कस करायला लागला तर आपल्याला संध्याकाळी 5 वाजेपर्यंत सेशन कंटिन्यू करायला लागेल. But so I'll tell you what. See, market behaves on 2 facts. One is prediction and second is the reality. On a prediction basis, market is fully priced in that same government will come. Now that's a risk. Because if it doesn't happen, you may see a knee-jerk reaction in the marketplace. I look at slightly other way around. I say, ki boss, whoever comes, one thing is for sure that they cannot undo what has been done by this government. It is impossible, right? The whole growth trajectory that this government has laid out, they cannot undo things. Their policies may be digestible to the market at that point in time or no, but we have to wait and see. I'm saying you will see the reaction in the market, but I would call it as an opportunity rather than, being worried. Because any party today comes in, tomorrow comes in, I think the message they have understood, ki kai paije as on the ground. So their policy frameworks may be a little different, but they just can't undo the things what have been already done or what is in pipeline also. But yes, it is one of the risks, obviously. The second risk which I spoke about is, what if this inflationary environment doesn't cool off? What if interest rates doesn't come back to normalcy, especially globally? And the third is this valuation thing which you are saying. So if markets keeps giving a disproportionate pricing to the earnings, which is not the growth, the market is not going up on corporate earnings, but only PE multiplication. Then we call it as typically a re-rating. Now that creates a bit of bubble. Now if that trend happens continuously, then that's another potential risk. But I think that is behind us. Till last October, that was the situation which I mentioned in my opening remarks. But today I think largely markets are based on the corporate earnings and then I think fair PE multiplier. But your answer, I hope I could, but I think Sujit sir, he needs a one-to-one discussion with you.
And the second part in terms of for people those who are retired or the allocation in terms of large caps, small caps, and mid caps. direction. I mean, you can't, again you said it's profiling and all that is fine, but maybe in terms of one has to put some numbers or
It's very easy. I mean, once you are retired, so what the thumb rule says, life expectancy of an individual minus his current age should be in equity. That's the thumb rule. It doesn't apply to Ambani. It doesn't apply to Birla, right? So, but
How does it apply to most of the people sitting here?
oh, maybe. So I'm sorry. I'm underestimating, but I'm saying this is what the thumb rule is. Obviously, the rule has an exceptions. So if expectancy is 90, today you are at 60, bare minimum your 30 has to go into equity. And with this kind of age coming into play, I would still say out of that 30, I mean, you can opt to be completely other side of the asset allocation also, but purely going by bookish thing, I think I would put 60% of that 30 into large caps. Yes, sir.
I know there are thousands of stocks, but why
There are 6,000, sir.
so why there are thousands of mutual funds?
There are no thousands of mutual fund. Mutual fund companies are 42. There are thousands of schemes. Correct. Sir, this wing is registered with SEBI. When the SEBI chairman comes in, please raise it. I am way too small person to answer that question. Way below my pay grade.
fund manager.
Fund manager choosing is the role of a mutual fund company. I would still say, no. Yeah. So I would say there are different things that I look at. I look at the processes, I look at the pedigree, and not an individual fund manager. I think the processes makes the entire thing much more robust, because no fund manager will get married to any organization. It's very wrong to assume that one single fund manager, if you're looking at the fund manager and then investing, then you have to keep changing your investment as and when where he moves, which people do. Right? To a certain extent, yes, I think people have got benefited out of this strategy also. The way I look at it is the pedigree of a fund house, because it may so happen that the fund manager changes hand and the replacement can be a superior person than that fund manager. Right? So it's about the processes, philosophies, whether the scheme has been true to the label. I mean, there are instances in the industry in the past wherein the large cap fund had about 35-40% exposure in small caps. Now, that's incorrect, right? Because the fund manager is not true to the label of the scheme. If your scheme name says large cap fund, then it has to be large cap portfolio. No matter if the large caps are underperforming as compared to mid and small. Because the gentleman, like what he said, he is coming with an intention to invest only in large caps. Then you should only give him large caps, and so on and so forth. So I think being true to the label is what important thing that one should look at it. Look at the longevity of the fund house, how many years of experience that the fund house has seen, because that gives you a fair amount of idea in this last 25-30 years with different ups and downs in the market, how that entire fund house or that particular scheme has behaved. Right? I'm not saying the new funds are bad, because someone has to start at some point in time. But I would still say I will give maybe relatively lower allocations to those funds as compared to a tried and tested philosophy funds. So this is my individual opinion. I will not go with so-called a star fund manager. I will go with the processes, pedigree, and the vintage rather than a fund manager. Maybe I'll give some bit of importance to that, but not completely.
I have a slightly different vision. Typically, one way of looking at hedging the investment is that you go for large cap, mid cap, small cap, the way the philosophy suits. The other thing, possibly sectoral fund. And often what is happening is, I mean, IT, which was doing very good maybe a couple of years back, suddenly it has at least maybe temporarily halted. You can, because people expect that growth to be continued. So in that sense, do you think sector funds, considering the change in the economy and the sectorial biases which are happening, is it a good idea to go for a sector fund also in addition to
It's on the risk grid, you will find different funds gets positioned differently. So there will be sectoral funds, Now somebody has to give, or you have to have a conviction on one particular sector based on your wisdom. That I think that the IT will do well, and then I'll identify which fund house has an IT dedicated fund. Now I'm very positive on banking stroke pharma and so on and so forth. But then please remember, you are at an extreme high risk spectrum because you are concentrated on one particular. It may work in your favor, it may not work in your favor. It's about playing a tactical call. I would do, and again I'm saying there is nothing right or wrong. You should be knowing what risk you are getting into and correspondingly what returns you should expect. If I have to look at it, I look at slightly differently. If I am very convinced on IT as a sector or banking as a sector or a pharma as a sector, I'll probably identify a diversified scheme of a mutual fund which has a relatively overweight on these sectors. So I'm not fully concentrating or exposing myself to a particular sector, but I am investing in a fund which has a slightly higher concentration as compared to its weightage in the benchmark, and I'll go there. It depends upon what kind of a risk that you want to play. Sectoral funds comes right at the top as far as the risk is concerned, and the index funds are extremely low. So it's index, then it's large cap, then it's multi-cap, then it's flexi-cap, then you have focused equity category, then you have, I would say, thematic, and then comes sectoral. So sectoral is at the peak as far as your has to be highest.
All the numbers, Nifty, Sensex, or in your presentation, they include the inflation.
Yes.
So how to separate out that inflation part and see these numbers again? Is it come first? Shall we separate it out yes or no? And if yes, then do we need to change your thought process of excluding the?
No, these are not inflation adjusted numbers. These are point to point returns what the market has given.
Yeah, so everywhere you see inflation inclusive numbers.
Yeah. Inflation exclusive numbers, but we are comparing it with inflation. So you mean real rate.
Real rate.
Fair point. We take that point. Understood. So you want to know because compounding happens on the inflation also. If you are comparing, so what is going to be? Mota, if you do the calculation, what we saw in that chart.
6.8 versus 12.
No, 6.8 versus 16.
16.
So if you look at 7%, Government of India bonds had given you 6.7, same inflation. So net your real returns is close to zero. If you factor in the tax component in it, then you are negative. Right? But I take your point, we'll see, and we'll actually keep this in, one of the recommendations that we keep giving it to the regulatory bodies in terms of the articulation of data points. But we will put that and keep it in mind. Whether can we do something कि inflation adjusted returns दिखा सकते हैं कि नहीं. I get your point. I understood where you're coming from.
When you think of investment or fund management, does it think of inflation also?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes.
That's the first priority.
That's the first part.
Absolutely yes.
It's a part of the process.
Yeah, no, there are several things. It could be one of them.
One of the process.
Yeah.
Is it like FI money is coming only in the Nifty 50 stocks? Because I see the mid-cap funds or large-cap funds struggling behind the index funds.
In fact, last 6 months, I think they have outperformed massively. They have outperformed massively. Both mid-cap and small-cap. But your point is right. By and large, yes, the FII's money typically comes in the index stocks. But I think we are increasingly seeing the change in the behavior and trend in that side also. So they are identifying maybe the larger side of the mid caps and larger side of the small cap companies.
Small cap and index are performing, but mid caps are like struggling.
No, there is an index on small cap also. There is an index for mid cap also. So पहला trend ऐसा था कि these guys only used to stick to Nifty 50 like so-called blue chip companies. But now that trend is changing. So they are still part of the indices. So large caps also has one index. Like mid cap also has one index. And outside index, they are still not going. But whether they are coming into different market caps, the answer is yes. It's not only restricted to large caps, is what I mean. They are still not gone outside the index universe, but they have moved from large caps and now participating in mid and small also, but index stocks.
Any questions? We break for a day.
Cool. Thank you so much once again. Wonderful time.
Appreciate it, don't worry. So, thank you very much, Swaroop. And people know that market is not at an all-time high. So, happy investing. And it's always a good time to invest. So, we'll break. We have any sessions for? No. So we have no sessions lined up for this month. We only had one session because the reason most of the people now, the last week where you need to file your returns, so most of the people will be busy in filing their returns. So we would not like to disturb them. The schedule for month of August, we will be shortly sending you. So thank you very much. We break.